Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Essay. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei Hyoudu's older twin sister was a fallen angel? Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Prologue. The sun was shining on another weekday in Kuo town. The sun filling the darkness of a bedroom in a non-suspecting two-story house. Inside the room, a teenage girl was sleeping soundly, evident from the soft snoring coming from her. The room had posters of various FPS games and action movie posters, as well as some family photos. There was an L-shaped desk in the corner of the room. On one side of the desk was a high-end gaming desktop with several books on firearms and firearm maintenance, as well as some personal knickknacks. On the other side sat an object under a large black cover, along with what looked like assembly tools. There was a bookshelf by her bedroom door with similar books as on the desk, along with various action manga, history books, encyclopedias, and some spy novels that were sorted alphabetically. There were even a pair of Jericho 941 pistols and a couple assault rifle airsoft guns hanging on the wall. A few moments later, the occupant's alarm clock went off and the voice came on. Hey, good morning Kuo town. It is now 15 past the hour of 5 a.m. in the charming little city just miles from Tokyo. Today's weather will be partly cloudy with a 15% chance of rain. Today's temperatures will be in the mid-50s today with it dropping in the low 30s starting tonight, so bundle up if you find yourself out and about at night. Humming up in the person on the radio was silenced as the occupant of the room pressed the button to turn it off while rubbing her eyes to get the sleep out of them. The occupant was a 17-year-old girl with brown hair that went down to the middle of her back and brown eyes. She had a rather curvaceous and moderately toned figure with large breasts. She wore a black tank top with white panties for her sleeping attire. This girl was Kiyone Hyoudou, firstborn daughter and oldest child of the Hyoudou family. Letting out a yawn, Kiyone stretched her arms to get the starch out her joints to help wake her up. She stood up and faced the door to her room. She took a deep breath, then dropped to the ground and began doing push-ups. After reaching 50 push-ups, she got on her back and did the same amount in sit-ups. After doing her sit-ups, she did the same amount in squats. After doing her squats, she put on a pair of black sweatpants and proceeded downstairs to the front door of her house. She grabbed her house keys along with headphones and her phone to play her music and proceeded to run 5 laps around the neighborhood. After the 5th lap, it was now close to 6:30, so she went back to her house to shower and get ready for school, which began at 8. Walking inside, Kiyone saw her mother in the kitchen making breakfast and her father sitting at the table reading a newspaper. They saw their daughter walk in the house and smiled at her with pride. Good morning Kiyone. Mrs. Hyoudou greeted the oldest child. Morning mom. Morning dad. Kiyone greeted both her parents. Back from your morning workout pumpkin? Asked Mr. Hyoudou as Kiyone wiped some sweat from her forehead. Yeah, gotta stay in shape after all. Kiyone responded to her father. Both parents smiled at their daughter. It's amazing how you rigorously work out early in the morning, yet still manage to have energy for school. You're even the top of your class on top of the grade curve. You make us both so proud. Said Mrs. Hyoudou with pride as she continued cooking breakfast for her family. Kiyone just smiled at her parents as she headed upstairs. Alright, I'll be in the shower if anyone needs me. Oh Kiyone sweetie. Mrs. Hyoudou called out. Could you wake your brother up before you get in the shower? Kiyone just groaned at the request. She didn't have the time or motivation to deal with her brother's antics. Please. Yeah sure. She said unenthusiastically. She then walked to the door next to hers and knocked on the door. Issei, are you up? She asked not getting a response. She knocked again and asked the same question, again no response. Knowing she didn't have time for this, she turned the knob and entered her brother's room. The walls of the room were littered with posters adorned with images of half-naked women or women with barely any clothing on them at all. Seeing the posters made Kiyone feel very uncomfortable. She knew her brother was a pervert, but it still creeped her out to be in his room. In the bed still fast asleep was a boy around Kiyone's age, and he bore nearly a similar physical appearance to her, but the difference was the boy had short spiky brown hair with 2 short locks of hair behind his head. This was Issei Hyoudou, the youngest son of the Hyoudou family and Kiyone's younger twin brother. The story goes that Mr. and Mrs. Hyoudou had trouble having children, having had 2 miscarriages back to back. When Mrs. Hyoudou got pregnant a 3rd time, Mr. Hyoudou paced in front of a Shinto shrine repeatedly and prayed that they would be successful in having children this time. His prayers were answered when they were blessed with healthy twin children, a girl born first and a boy born 7 minutes later. Mrs. Hyoudou always wanted a daughter to be named Kiyone. As for the boy, they named him Issei. Kiyone just looked at her brother with an annoyed look on her face. She shook her brother to try and wake him up. Issei, come on it's time to wake up. Issei just ignored his sister and continued dreaming his own dream with a goofy grin on his face. Breasts. He mumbled in his sleep. Kiyone was further annoyed at this. She didn't have time for this, but she knew there was one thing that wouldn't fail. She shut the door to her brother's room, approached her brother's ear and whispered in his ears. Issei, there's a really pretty girl downstairs who isn't wearing a bra and whose boobs are bouncing up and down, and she's begging for a big, strong man to come down and fondle them. She backed up and mentally counted down from 3 and then, "Titties? Yahoo off." Issei shouted as he shot out of his bed and jumped towards the doorway, only to end up face first into his door. He was then on his knees holding his injured face. He then looked up to see the smirk on his sister's face, a toothy grin present followed by a chuckle. Issei just glared at her, angry that she not only tricked him, but also because he fell for the same trick. "There are no titties downstairs, are there, Kiyone?" he asked with anger in his voice. Kiyone just shook her head. "What do you think, mega perv?" she asked sarcastically. "Damn it. Why do you always have to get my hopes up and then smash them, you damn gun nut? Hey, it's not my fault you keep falling for the same trick, you sleaze. Now get dressed and go downstairs and eat or we'll be late," she answered her brother, who just shot a glare at her. Kiyone then exited her brother's room and went to hers. She grabbed her school uniform from her closet and a clean bra and pair of panties from her dresser. She grabbed a towel from the hall closet and went to the bathroom to take a shower. After taking a shower, she dried herself off, got dressed and put her hair up in a high ponytail with a black bow. Afterwards she went downstairs to eat with her family. Issei, having finished getting dressed, was sitting at the table and eating his breakfast. She took her spot next to her brother and started eating hers. After breakfast, Issei and Kiyone grabbed their school bags and bentos and exited the house to go to school. "We're off, Mom and Dad. See you later," Issei called out. "Have a nice day at school, you two," shouted Mr. Hyoudou as both he and his wife waved goodbye to their children. While walking to school, the twins were intercepted by 2 of their classmates. 2 whom Kiyone wanted nothing more than to avoid if at all possible. One of them was a taller boy with a shaved head and the other was a boy with brown hair wearing glasses. This was Mitsuda and Motohama respectively, 2 of Issei's best friends since middle school. What Kiyone didn't like about these 2 is the fact that they were bigger perverts than her brother. In fact, together the 3 make up the perverted trio, 3 of the biggest perverts in Kuo Academy. Kiyone tolerated her brother's perverted nature, and that was enough for her. She certainly need to be affiliated with 2 more. "Yo Issei, my man, what's up?" Mitsuda greeted his friend as they bumped fists. "So, did you manage to watch the DVD we lent you?" asked Motohama. "Hey guys. And yeah, I did. It was amazing," Issei said with a lecherous grin, causing Kiyone to look at them in disgust. "Well, that explains why you wouldn't wake up on time this morning. You were up all night watching porn." "Why am I not surprised?" the older twin said deadpanned. "Well, hello there, Kiyone. You look lovely as ever." Motohama complimented the girl, who just shrugged off the comment. The last thing she needed was a compliment from a pervert. "Oh, why are you so cruel, Kiyone?" Motohama retorted, all the while gazing at her body. For some odd reason or another, Motohama had the uncanny ability to accurately determine the 3 measurements of any woman he sets his eyes on, and he had no problem saying them out loud, despite how uncomfortable his comments made the women around him. When Kiyone caught on what he was doing, she bopped him in the nose, causing a nosebleed. "Try to figure my measurements again, you creep. There won't be a surgery possible that will repair your eyes," she said with a rather wicked and sadistic voice. She was even covered in a menacing aura for emphasis, scaring the 2 other boys. "Damn, Kiyone, you didn't have to knock him down like that," Issei said to his sister. "Well, he knows how much I find that little trick of his disgusting," Kiyone responded. "Aw, come on, is it a crime to admire such a beautiful lady like you?" asked Mitsuda. "The compliment coming from a couple of sleazy pervs like you, yeah, it ought to be a crime." "Aw, come on sis, you know you love us," Issei said. Kiyone just looked at her brother with a disinterested look on her face. "I tolerate you. Them I really don't care about," Kiyone responded, causing Issei to feel like a knife went through his heart. "Oh, dear sister, your cruel words pierce my heart," Issei said in a dramatic tone, which Kiyone just rolled her eyes. Kiyone then looked to see the clock tower a ways away and looked at the time. It was now 10 minutes too late. Seeing the time, now Kiyone was freaking out. "Oh crap, it's almost 8 o'clock. We're gonna be late." The perverted trio shared in Kiyone's anxiety, and immediately they all took off in a sprint toward school. They all knew that if they were late, they would catch hell from the student council president. While they were running, they didn't notice a man coming out of hiding from a corner wall. It was a tall man in his 20s with an average build with black hair, golden bangs and a black goatee. He was also wearing a grey yukata with a lazy smile on his face. He looked to see the kids running to school and couldn't help but chuckle. "Ah, the wonders of youth," he said. His eyes then fell on the younger Hyoudou twin, then his expression turned serious. "Kiyone, I hope you are ready for the events to come. When all is said and done, can you still protect your brother? Or will he be the one to protect you?" After school, it was finally the end of the day, and the students of Kuo Academy were mingling with each other or heading to their after-school club activities. Kiyone was sitting on the fountain by the entrance, a textbook in her hands and a notebook by her side. She was finishing some of her homework while she was waiting for someone. As she was writing, she heard a voice calling for her. Kiyone. She looked and saw a beautiful girl with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair and brown eyes, which had swept bangs and a single strand of hair sticking from the top. This girl was Tomo Meguri, a fellow second-year student and a secretary for the student council. Tomo was meeting Kiyone for tutoring lessons. Tomo wasn't doing so well in her history class, and since she and Kiyone had the same history class and she knew her quite well, Tomo asked her for tutoring lessons. Since Kiyone considered Tomo a friend, she happily agreed to help her out. "Hey there, Tomo." Kiyone greeted her classmate. "Hey, sorry if I'm late. Did I keep you waiting long?" "Oh no, don't even worry about it. I did some of my homework to kill some time." "So, you ready for your session?" she asked while packing up her things. Tomo happily nodded her head. "You bet, and thanks again for these tutoring lessons. If the president found out I wasn't doing well in one of my classes, she'd hit the roof and I'd never hear the end of it. You're a real lifesaver," she replied. As they were about to head to Tomo's home, Kiyone caught the sight of a certain familiar trip of perverts walking across the courtyard. "What are those morons up to?" Kiyone asked out loud. She then looked to the opposite end of where they were walking and realized they were heading for the changing rooms of the kendo club, whom she was sure were just about to get ready for club activities. She then scowled at her brother and her friends as she realized what they were up to. Tomo looked at Kiyone with a confused expression. "Hey Tomo, can you wait for a moment, I have to do something real quick." Tomo looked at where Kiyone was looking and understood why she asked. "Going to go save that pervy monkey you call your brother again?" Kiyone let out a loud sigh before she replied. "Unfortunately yes. Go on, I can wait." Tomo replied with an understanding smile. Kiyone smiled and then walked towards the changing room. After a few minutes of peeping on the girls, the trio were eventually discovered and suddenly Mitsuda and Motohama bailed, leaving Issei to take the brunt of the kendo club's wrath. Issei was now on the ground looking up to see the girls in their kendo uniforms and all holding shinai, ready to beat the pervert to a bloody pulp. "Wait, please don't hurt me," Issei begged, sweating bullets. Before Issei could get his beating, the kendo club was stopped when someone called out to them. Why am I not surprised? Everyone looked to see Kiyone standing a few feet away from Issei and the kendo club. Issei looked relieved to see his big sister. "Kiyone, didn't expect to see you." One of the kendo club members, the one with long brown hair, said. "Hello Murayama. I'm here because I was waiting for a friend so I could help her with one of her classes." Kiyone responded. "Oh really, are you not here to save your lech of a brother?" Another member, one with short pink hair, asked. "Why would I, Caddis? It seems to me that Issei is going to get what's coming to him for peeping on you." Kiyone responded with her arms crossed. With that response, Issei looked at his sister hurt. "Hey Kiyone, how could you say that about your own brother?" Issei asked. "Look girls, as much as I want to stay and watch you all beat him to a pulp, I'm here because President Sauna wants a word with him." "Oh, really?" Murayama complained. "And what, pray tell, does the student council president want with your pervy brother?" Caddis inquired. "Damned if I know, I'm just the messenger. Now are you gonna let me take my brother to hopefully face whatever punishment President Sauna has in mind for him, or am I going to have to go back to her empty-handed and have me explain to her why you all kept her from dealing with him? Word of warning, she won't be happy, especially if she needs to personally come here and repeat herself, and we all know she doesn't like that." Kiyone retorted with a wicked grin, scaring both the kendo members and Issei. Damn, Kiyone sure can be scary when she wants to be. Issei thought to himself. No. If the president wants a word with him, who are we to keep her waiting? Replied Murayama in an innocent voice, even though she was still frightened by Kiyone's ultimatum. "Yeah, that's right. President Sauna will know what to do with him," replied Caddis. Kiyone just smirked at the kendo members. "Smart choice everyone. Come on Issei." Issei quickly got up and went to his sister, and the twins walked away from the kendo club. Issei had a relieved look on his face, while Kiyone sported a beyond annoyed look. They stopped and looked at each other. "Oh man. Thanks for saving my ass back there Kiyone. I owe you one," Issei said in gratitude to his sister. "You owe me a lot more than just one mega perv. You know, here's a crazy idea Issei, why don't you and those two losers you hang out with stop peeping on girls when they're changing clothes? Maybe then you won't get beaten up so mercilessly every time you get caught and I wouldn't have to bail you out of trouble," Kiyone suggested sarcastically. "We're guys Kiyone, we can't help it. Come on, it's only natural we want to see what lies beneath a woman's clothes." Kiyone just looked at her brother with a deadpan expression. "Honestly, and people often wonder how it is we are related. Even I'm starting to question it," she said as she put two fingers to her forehead in irritation. "Whatever. Look, I'm going to Tomo's house to give her some tutoring, do me a favor and try and stay out of trouble on your way home. Alright, geez. Issei replied annoyed. But before I go though, I gotta go find Mitsuda and Motohama and give them a piece of my mind for leaving me to take the grenades. I think I saw them run towards the old school building. Kiyone said, pointing behind her towards the other side of the school. Thanks Kiyone. I'll see you at home. Issei said as he walked away. Remember, stay out of trouble. Yeah. Issei casually replied while waving his hand. Kiyone then caught up with Tomo, and the two proceeded to the latter's home to begin their tutoring session. Later that evening, Kiyone was currently standing outside an all-night diner, which coincidentally is only a few blocks from her home. After she left Tomo's house after their tutoring session, Kiyone received a text from someone saying to meet them at the diner. The number was one she was familiar with. She looked and saw that there weren't a lot of patrons, but then looked at the far end of the diner to see a man she knew a great deal. The very same man who saw her running to school with the perverted trio. She looked at the man with an annoyed expression. Not wanting to keep him waiting, she entered the diner. Ding ding. Welcome, sit anywhere you like, said the cashier. Kiyone then walked to the booth the man was sitting at and took a seat across from him. Well Kiyone, glad you could make it. Care to join me for some food? Said the man in a relaxed manner and with a smile. Kiyone just continued to look at him with an annoyed expression. What are you doing here Azazel? She asked the man now known as Azazel. What, your old instructor can swing by and say hello to one of his best and most promising pupils. You're taking a big risk here. You do realize that this place is under the control of the devils, don't you? Said devils in fact are the younger siblings of two of the devil kings. One of whose peerage members I happen to be on good terms with. Not to mention I'm doing my best to stay under their radars. Kiyone exclaimed. Relax will you, nobody even knows I'm here. And you seem to be doing just fine staying incognito, so don't get your panties in a twist. Azazel replied, causing Kiyone to gain a tick mark. Just as she was about to say her piece, a waitress came to the booth. Hello, can I get you anything? She asked the brown-haired fallen angel, her pen and notepad at the ready. I'm not eating anything, I'll just have a coffee. And put it on his tab. Kiyone replied. Coming right up. Said the waitress as she went to fetch Kiyone's order. Anyway, Kiyone Azazel began. I called you here because I wanted to give you a warning. Kiyone then looked at her former mentor with a questioning look. Before she could say her piece, the waitress came with a pot of coffee and Azazel's order. She placed the food in front of Azazel and poured it into the cup in front of Kiyone. Thank you very much. Both thanked the waitress, who smiled in return and went to serve other tables. Kiyone took a sip from her cup before looking back to her former instructor. So what did you want to warn me about? Azazel took a fork and dug into his meal. Well, I don't know if you are aware, but I believe your brother may have a sacred gear in him. He replied before he took a bite of his food. Kiyone was silent for a moment. You know, I've been sensing something inside my brother for a while now. Nice to know I wasn't losing my mind. So what kind of sacred gear do you think he has? She asked as she took another sip. I don't know yet, but I think it might be something very powerful. Listen Kiyone, I need you to keep an eye on your brother. If my hunch is correct about his sacred gear, there will be people who will be gunning for him because they will deem it and him too dangerous to be kept alive. Think you can do that? Kiyone looked at Azazel with a determined look on her face. Need you ask me to do so? You told me when I became a fallen angel and gave me my sacred gear, I could have the power to be able to protect family, didn't you? Kiyone asked rhetorically. Azazel just smirked at his pupil. I'm glad I can rely on you Kiyone. I expected nothing less from you. Kiyone returned a smirk as she finished her coffee. Thanks for the coffee. She then grabbed her school bag and proceeded to the exit. The cashier thanked Kiyone for her patronage as she left the diner. Kiyone continued to walk as the sun started to set, contemplating what Azazel told her. Being told that there would be people coming after her brother was a shock to her. While she doesn't agree with Issei's tastes and finds him annoying at times, she loves her brother dearly and would do anything to protect him. Taking a shortcut in an alley, she stopped walking for a moment and looked at her right hand. She concentrated and suddenly, flash, the Jericho 941 pistol appeared in her hand. She also brought out her two fallen angel wings. She brought it up close to her and a serious and determined expression adorned her face. I was given power to protect the people I love. I won't let anything happen to them, not as long as I am around to protect them. She swore to herself. With her resolve strengthened, she dissipated the gun, retracted her wings, and then continued the walk to her home. After walking about a couple more blocks, she finally arrived home. She used her key to unlock the door and went inside. I'm home. She called out as she shut and locked the front door. Kiyone, it's a miracle. Her mother exclaimed as she came to the front door to greet her daughter. Kiyone just looked at her mother with a confused look. What's a miracle mom? She asked as she took off her shoes. Issei finally managed to get himself a girlfriend. Mrs. Hyoudou replied ecstatically. Kiyone continued to look at her mother with a confused expression. She knows Issei is a pervert with an unhealthy fascination with women's breasts, there was no way he could ever get himself a girlfriend. Mom, I think I must have misheard you. Did you just say Issei had a girlfriend? You're damn right she did, sis. Haha, Issei said with pride in his voice as he made his appearance. Aye, Kiyone shouted in disbelief. It was Sunday morning and Kiyone was doing her morning jog around the block like she does every morning. While running, Kiyone couldn't help but think about what transpired 2 nights previously, the night she found out her brother had a girlfriend and was taking her out on Sunday. 2 nights ago, Kiyone was now sitting at the dining table eating dinner with her brother and parents. She was still reeling over what she had just heard from her mother and Issei. So, you really have a girlfriend? Kiyone asked looking at her brother, who was laying back in his seat with his eyes closed and hands behind his head and sporting a cocky smile. Yep. Issei replied arrogantly. A real, living, breathing girl. Yep. Kiyone then smirked at her next question. Is it by chance your left hand? Yep. WH what? No. Issei replied in an embarrassed tone. First step is admitting it, little brother. Kiyone replied, the smirk still present on her face, earning an annoyed glare from her brother. Oh, Kiyone, don't say such lewd things at the table. Mrs. Hyoudou chastised her daughter. I am not lying, Kiyone, I have a girlfriend now. And for the record, I use my right hand. Issei, that includes you too, young man. No talk like that at the table. Replied Mr. Hyoudou. Kiyone then looked at her brother disgusted. Yeah, seriously, WTMI, Issei. Come on, we're trying to eat here. Kiyone, I swear I am not lying. And I have proof. Issei declared as he tried to pull out his cell phone. Once he pulled it out, he went to his photos and pulled up the photo he had taken of his new girlfriend earlier that day. He then presented his phone to Kiyone. Haha, read it and weep, sis. This is my girlfriend, Yuma Amano. Kiyone looked at the photo and suddenly a shocked expression adorned her face. This wasn't because Issei was right that he got a girlfriend, it was because she knew the girl in the photo. The woman in the photo looked to be about the same age as her with a slender body, large breasts, violet eyes, and long silky black hair. She wore what appeared to be a school uniform which consisted of a dark red jacket with a letter P embroidered in gold and a green skirt with a white stripe around the lower end. She looks younger, but this is definitely Raynare. Kiyone thought to herself. She had met Raynare the year before when Azazel took her to Grigori headquarters after becoming a fallen angel. When they first met, Kiyone immediately took a disliking to her because she looked down on Kiyone just because she was recently reincarnated, saying things like she was weak and pathetic and the like. One of Kiyone's pet peeves is people who are arrogant. But, why the hell would she make contact with my brother? Could it be because of his sacred gear? Kiyone continued to think. What's your smart ass gotta say about that, Kiyone? Issei asked arrogantly, only then noticing his sister's expression. His arrogant look immediately turned to a worried one. Whoa, Kiyone, are you okay? You look like you just saw a ghost. Kiyone shook her head, finally managing to come back to reality and looked at her brother. What? I asked if you were okay. Said Issei. I'm fine, Issei, just a little shocked is all. She is a really pretty girl, congrats. And I'm sorry for doubting you. She replied to her brother, who still had a worried look on his face. Her parents shared the same feeling. Are you sure you're okay, Kiyone? It's not like you to space out like that. Said Mrs. Hyoudou. I'm fine, Mom, really, like I said, I was just shocked. I know, isn't the girl just gorgeous? And here I thought Issei was going to be a virgin forever, well you were gonna be the only to give us any grandchildren and help carry on the Hyoudou name. Said Mr. Hyoudou, causing Issei to look at his father shocked and Kiyone to become embarrassed at her father's comment. What? Dad, how could you say that, exclaimed Issei. Seriously, Dad, isn't it a bit early to be thinking about that? Kiyone asked, only to be ignored as both their parents were engaged in a conversation about grandchildren. Kiyone and Issei ultimately gave up trying to talk to them the rest of the night. Kiyone finished her run and finally made it back to her house. She then got some clean clothes and went to take a shower. After her shower, she was greeted by her brother who had just gotten up a few minutes ago to get ready for his date and was dressed in a black collar shirt with a grey jacket and black pants. The night Issei announced he had a girlfriend, he asked his sister for advice on what to do for his date. Morning, Kiyone, back from your run I see. The youngest Hyoudou greeted his sister. Morning, Issei, you about ready for your date? Kiyone asked. Yeah. But I gotta admit, I'm still a little nervous. Kiyone put her hand on her brother's shoulder to calm him down. Issei, just remember what I told you and you got this date is in the bag. But, what if she doesn't show up? What if she did all this just to egg me on? What if Issei began to babble on about the possible bad things that could happen? Kiyone looked at her brother with a deadpan expression until she smacked him on the back of the head to shut him up. Thank you, I needed that. Anytime, my dear brother. Now then, you got everything you need. Let's see. Wallet, cash, movie tickets, breath mints. Yep, I'm good to go. Issei replied, making Kiyone smile at him. Issei said goodbye to his parents and was about to head off to the place he was supposed to meet up with Yuma. As he was about to make a turn, he heard the door open behind him and saw Kiyone come out behind him in a grey graphic t-shirt, a pair of pants and sneakers with a backpack slung on her back. "Kiyone, where are you going?" "I'm meeting up with Tomo at the bookstore. We need to get a book we need for a report for history class," replied the older twin. "The FFFT, you know if you do nothing but study and play those games of yours all the time Kiyone, you're never gonna get yourself a man," Issei said jokingly, only for Kiyone to slap him in the arm in retaliation. "Issei, I have more important things to do than to try and find a boyfriend," Kiyone replied with a serious expression, which soon softened into a smile. "But in all seriousness, have fun on your date." Issei smiled in return. "Thanks Kiyone." And with that, the twins went their separate ways. Kiyone turned the corner and immediately ran into a nearby alley, out of sight from any onlookers, and sprouted her fallen angel wings and took to the skies. "Alright Raynare, let's find out what are you up to you arrogant slut." She then flew in the direction her brother was headed. After she caught a glimpse of Issei, she then landed on the roof of the tall building across the street. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a mini telescope and aimed it towards Issei, who was still standing by the lamppost waiting for Yuma. Issei waited patiently for Yuma, waiting for what seemed like an eternity. A woman dressed in devilish-looking cosplay came up to him and offered him a flyer. After she left, Yuma showed up a few moments later, wearing black strapless sandals, a short black dress with a small, light purple jacket, which showed a good proportion of her cleavage, which of course caused Issei to gain a perverted expression. Seeing this annoyed Kiyone greatly. "TCH, honestly Issei, get your mind out of the gutter, you damn moron," she scoffed. Once the couple met up with one another, they proceeded to the shopping district of the city. Issei and Yuma spent a good majority of their date in the shopping district, hoping to kill time before the movie. The two went into a men's clothing store where Yuma had Issei try on various shirts. They even went to a women's clothing store where Issei bought her a bracelet. After killing some time, the two went to grab a bite to eat at a nearby restaurant. All the while Kiyone followed the two and watched them like a hawk. Issei and Yuma just talked to pass the time, Issei discreetly eyeing his date's exposed cleavage from time to time. Kiyone just continued to get annoyed at Issei's perverted nature. "I'm going to kick your lecherous ass one of these days Issei," she said to herself as she continued to spy on the two. The time finally came for the movie and the couple headed for the movie theater. Kiyone took a position on the roof of the building opposite of the movie theater and watched as the two went inside. Kiyone still didn't understand what Raynare was doing with Issei, so against her better judgment, she decided to contact the only person who might have answers. She took out her cell phone and dialed Azazel's number and waited for him to pick up. Azazel was lounging around on his sofa in his living room watching the news when he heard his cell phone ringing. Looking at the caller ID, he smiled and answered it. "Kiyone, well this certainly is a surprise. You calling me, I'm rather touched." Azazel answered in his usual laid-back tone. "Can it Azazel? Answer me these questions. Why is there a girl here in Kuo Town who looks exactly like Raynare and why did she make contact with my brother?" Kiyone asked angrily. She was in no mood for her former instructor's games or his particular brand of bullshit. "Raynare? No, she's supposed to be back at Grigori HQ. Are you sure it's her? She looks younger, but she does have the same energy signature when I first met her." "Yeah, it's definitely that arrogant bitch," Kiyone replied. "Are you sure you're not just being paranoid? Or could it be that you're just jealous that Issei found himself a girl and you don't want to lose him to another girl?" Azazel asked in a smart-ass tone, chuckling afterwards, causing Kiyone to gain a tick mark on her head and start gritting her teeth in frustration. "I'm hanging up now." No, wait, hang on, I was just kidding," Azazel quickly said. Kiyone then put the phone back to her ear. "Alright, look, if Raynare is indeed in Kuo Town, then it means your brother is in trouble." Hearing that put Kiyone on edge. "Explain that please. You remember Shemhazai, my vice-governor general, right?" "Yeah, I met him, what does he have to do with this?" "Raynare is completely devoted to him and I. She always said crap like I am loyal only to you and Lord Shemhazai and I live to serve you both blah blah blah. Originally before I took you under my wing after turning you into a fallen angel, I was going to have Raynare follow your brother around to make sure his sacred gear remained inactive. Either that or recruit him to our side if it was awake, worst case scenario kill him if it went out of control. When she found out I was going with you instead, suffice it to say she didn't take it very well." "Azazel?" Kiyone addressed the governor general in a very cold and scary tone. "Ulpa, yes Kiyone?" he asked, clearly afraid of the tone of his pupil's voice. And just like that, a visage of a grim reaper appeared behind her. Kiyone was now furious, not only did Azazel hide very important information from her, but it was information that regarded Issei. "Did you not think that this information would have been useful to know when we met back at the diner?" she asked in a calm and composed manner, hiding the fury in her voice. Azazel was now sweating bullets, he knew that even he was not safe from Kiyone's fury. Oops. Arizona LLLL. If Kiyone wasn't pissed then, she sure was now. Azazel had to find a way to defuse the situation. Kiyone, listen to me, if Raynare is there now, she may be planning to harm your brother in an attempt to get back at us for playing her. Listen, you have to stop her no matter what. More than likely she is going to kill him to keep his sacred gear from awakening. Azazel said seriously. Don't worry, I won't let that bitch kill my brother. Not unless I put a bullet in her head first. Kiyone declared as her hair shadowed over her eyes. She then ended her call and put her phone away. As she raised her head, her eyes were revealed to have a serious and determined look in them. If Raynare was there to kill Issei, she would have to go through Kiyone first. Or more accurately, Kiyone would go through her. Kiyone continued to sit on the rooftop, eagerly waiting for Issei and Raynare to come out. Unknown to Kiyone, someone was watching her from an adjacent building. Well. Someone spying on Lady Raynare. Didn't you know curiosity killed the cat? The stalker said out loud as she smirked wickedly. It was nearly 6 o'clock in the evening, and the sun was just beginning to set. Kiyone continued to wait until she saw Issei and his date come out of the theater. The two of them walked off in another direction out of the shopping district. Kiyone continued to follow them. From the general direction they were going, Kiyone correctly deduced that the two were heading to the park. Watching them enter the park, Kiyone was just about to jump down and follow them in until she sensed someone behind her. She then jumped to the side to avoid her attacker. Nice moves. You have to be quick to dodge someone like me. The attacker said arrogantly. Kiyone looked to see who it was who tried to kill her. The attacker was revealed to be a young girl with blonde hair styled into twin tails with blue eyes. She wore a black Lolita dress with white frills, a large black bow on the front with thigh-high socks and black shoes. She also had a green jewel embedded on the collar of her dress. To complete the gothic Lolita look, she also had a large black bow on her head. A pair of fallen angel wings protruded from her back, she held a pink light spear in her right hand, and a cocky, arrogant smile adorned her youthful face. Another fallen angel. Kiyone exclaimed as she stood back up. Well, if it isn't Lord Azazel's little pet project. The fallen angel said. I remember you. I saw you at Grigori HQ with Lord Azazel. Honestly, I don't know what he was thinking bringing someone like you in. Who the hell are you? Kiyone asked angrily. If you must know, my name is Middled. I saw you spying on Lady Raynare, and so I decided to do something about it. Replied the fallen angel, now identified as Middled. So that was Raynare. Question now is what the hell is that lousy bitch doing here, and on that note what are her intentions towards my brother? Middle just laughed at the older Hyoudou twins' question. So that worthless little worm is your brother, huh? Wow, to think that not just you but your brother turned out to be talentless losers. Middle sneered, angering Kiyone. Kiyone may think her brother was a pervert and an idiot, but nobody insults her family and walks away unscathed. Kiyone readied herself to fight Middle, but didn't want to attract unwanted attention by using guns. So Kiyone manifested a light spear in her hands, which was violet in color. Ah, you really think you stand a chance against me, loser? Middle chided as she twirled her own light spear in her hand. Kiyone just glared angrily at her opponent. She wanted nothing more than to tear Middle a new one for the remarks about her brother, but she didn't have time. She needed to finish quickly to go help Issei. She pointed her spear at the fallen angel. Come closer and find out, you cocky flat-chested whore. Middle just gritted her teeth in anger at the older twin's comment and flew towards her with her spear raised. She slashed down at Kiyone, who managed to block the attack. Kiyone then pushed her back and followed up with a horizontal slash, which Middle managed to block as well. Middle then tried to sweep the feet, but Kiyone jumped to avoid the attack and performed a roundhouse kick that landed on Middle's face, causing her to stagger back a few steps. You bitch. Middle shouted as she tried to slash Kiyone, who just parried every attack Middle threw at her. Middle then brought her spear down for another downward slash, for Kiyone to block again, only this time, their spears were locked with each other. Both were trying to push the other back, but to no avail. Middle just grinned at Kiyone. Well, color me impressed that you lasted this long. Maybe you're not so useless after all. You should join up with us. Kiyone just continued to glare at her opponent. She then realized that she said us. Could this mean that there were other fallen angels in town? Kiyone was now more determined to finish the fight. Work alongside some arrogant assholes like you and Raynare? No thanks, I'll pass. She responded as she then headbutted Middle, breaking her nose and causing it to bleed in the process. As Middle yelped out in pain, Kiyone delivered a powerful kick to Middle's solar plexus, sending her flying to the other side of the building. As Middle hit the ground, Kiyone slammed her foot on Middle's chest to keep her from escaping. She then dissipated her light spear and concentrated. Flash, Kiyone manifested a Mossberg 500 pump-action shotgun, which she aimed right at Middle's head. Now normally, shotguns aren't really Kiyone's preference, but she can still get the job done with close-range weapons. Middle saw the weapon pointed at her face and looked up at Kiyone. Now, what the hell are you planning with Issei? Talk, or I'll kill you right here. Kiyone threatened the downed fallen angel, who only just snickered at her. Hearing her chuckle at the situation she was in put her on edge. She knew that in nearly every movie she watched and every video game she played, when the villain starts chuckling even when backed into a corner, it's never a good sign. What the hell are you laughing at? It doesn't matter now, you're too late. Lady Raynare should be turning your brother into a shish kebab right now. She replied arrogantly and continued to laugh. Kiyone, having heard enough, slammed the butt of her shotgun on Middle's face, shutting her up and knocking her out cold. Kiyone then dissipated her gun and ran to the edge of the building. She brought out her fallen angel wings and leaped off the building, flying towards the park where she last saw her brother walk with Raynare. I'm coming, Issei. Just hold on, I'll be there soon. She said to herself as she flew over the park. The park around the same time, Uma and Issei were now standing in front of the fountain in the park, not a soul around except for them. Issei managed to be on his best behavior during the entirety of their date, minus a few quick peeks of his date's cleavage, but aside from that he was a gentleman today. It was near the end of their date, and Issei expected a kiss from Uma for showing her a good time. Instead, she had another idea. She looked towards the younger twin and asked him a question. Issei, would you do something for me? Issei could only imagine what it was she wanted, his mind going into overdrive. Sure, Uma. What is it? He asked. Uma drew herself closer to him, exciting Issei further until would you die for me? Issei was confused at her request. He looked at her with a confused expression. I'm sorry Uma, I don't think I heard you right. Oh no, you heard me right. I asked you if you would die for me. Uma said, her kind voice now gone and replaced with a cold evil tone. With that, she then transformed before Issei's eyes. Uma again grew taller, taking on a more mature appearance. Her clothing changed as well, she was now wearing black, strap-like objects around and under her breasts, a thong-like piece held around her hips by 3 thin straps, gloves that ran up her arms with small chains hanging around them, shoulder guard-like objects on her shoulders with 3 spikes sprouting from her right shoulder, and black thigh-high heel boots. 2 black wings emerged from her back to complete the transformation. Issei was beyond shocked at what he just saw. He thought this was some kind of twisted nightmare and now wanted nothing more than for it to be over. I had a lot of fun the last couple of days. Raynare said with a giggle. Honestly, you were so easy it was almost laughable. With that, she raised her left hand and a pink spear of light appeared in it. Seeing that caused Issei to stumble backwards. He was beyond scared right now. Suddenly he felt a sharp pain in his chest. He looked down to see the spear now embedded in his heart. Pretty soon, Issei was on his back, bleeding out on the ground. Raynare just chuckled at her handiwork as she sat on the edge of the fountain, watching Issei bleed out. Sorry, since you're a potential risk, I had to take care of you sooner or later. If you want someone to blame for this, then blame God. After all, he gave you the sacred gear. Raynare said with a cold, cruel tone, all the while a twisted smile adorned her face. Right before the moment Issei was stabbed, Kiyone managed to find where they were in the park and flew down to intercept Raynare. As she landed, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her chest, causing her to fall to the ground. She clutched her chest tightly, feeling as if she got stabbed in the heart. She looked up to see Raynare stabbing Issei. Seeing the sight of her brother being murdered shocked and enraged her. Forgetting the pain in her chest thanks to the rush of adrenaline, she concentrated and soon dual Jericho 941 pistols were in her hands. Forget about keeping a low profile, Kiyone was pissed and she knew exactly who to take it out on. You bitch. Kiyone yelled angrily with tears in her eyes as she took aim at Raynare. Raynare heard the comment and turned around. Suddenly Kiyone started firing. Kiyone managed to hit Raynare in the shoulder. Raynare grasped where she got shot and took to the sky to try and get out of the line of fire. She looked at the shooter and glared angrily at Kiyone. You little bitch. Raynare said as she made another light spear and threw it at Kiyone. Kiyone managed to dodge the attack. She looked up again and took aim only to see Raynare gone. That momentary distraction was enough for Raynare to make a quick getaway. Damn it. Kiyone shouted as she threw her guns to the ground in anger, which soon disappeared. She wanted nothing more than to try and go after her, but she had to try and tend to her brother. Looking at Issei, she ran to him and went to his side. Issei. Issei. She called out. Issei was bleeding profusely from the hole in his chest, his eyes were blank, and he was coughing up blood. Seeing this broke Kiyone's heart. Issei managed to find the strength to look at Kiyone in the face. Kiyone. He managed to wheeze out before he coughed up more blood, some of it landing on Kiyone's face. Kiyone ignored the blood and held her brother's head, fear and panic etched onto her face. Issei, don't talk. You're going to be okay, you hear me, I just have to, she tried to say as she tried to take out her cell phone to call for help until she felt something on her cheek. She looked to find her brother's hand touching her cheek, weakly smiling at her. I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble. He managed to say weakly. And I'm glad that the last face I got to see was yours. I love you, my sweet sister." Once he finished, he shut his eyes and his hand slipped down her cheek, leaving a streak of blood on her cheek and onto the ground as he slipped into unconsciousness. Kiyone's eyes widened in horror. "No!" she screamed at the top of her lungs. "Somebody. Anybody. Please, help." Kiyone yelled hysterically, tears running down her face. She cradled her brother's head to her chest as she continued to cry. "No, please don't die, Issei. Please don't leave me," she said softly as she continued to cradle his head. "I finally have the power to protect the people I love and I still couldn't do anything to help. I'm so useless," she thought to herself as she continued to cradle Issei's head close to her, tears falling from her eyes like waterfalls, some hitting his face. When it looked like she was on the verge of a breakdown, the park soon lit up with a bright red glow. Kiyone looked at the source of the glow and noticed it was a magic circle. Kiyone recognized the symbol in the circle. Wait. That's the Gremory family symbol. Looks like Miss Gremory must have answered Issei's call. Kiyone deduced before she looked back to her brother. She theorized that one of the devils that controlled the territory, Ria's Gremory, is here to reincarnate Issei as a devil. As much as Kiyone hated the thought of Issei being reborn as a devil, she knew that her brother was running out of time and this was the only option to save Issei. Not to mention Ria's wouldn't like it if she found out that not only was Kiyone a fallen angel, but one that was trespassing in her territory. Kiyone wanted to keep a low profile as much as possible, so with no other option, she brought out her fallen angel wings again. Before she could leave, she brought Issei's face to hers and kissed his forehead before gently laying his head on the ground. "Issei, if you can hear me, I love you too, little brother. And no matter what happens, I'll see you at home," she said with a sweet smile before she took off to the roof where she left Middle knocked out. As she landed, she noticed that her wannabe assassin was right where she left her, easing her mind a bit. She then took a pair of handcuffs with angel warding from her backpack and cuffed Middle with them, picked her up and slung her over her shoulder. She then took off again into the sky and headed to where Azazel was holed up in Kuo town, but not before glancing one last time at the spot she left Issei, the red glow still present. "I just hope I don't come to regret this one day," she thought before taking to the sky. Later that night, Kiyone was now on the phone talking to Azazel while sitting on her bed. After dropping off Middle at Azazel's, he told Kiyone that he will get a couple people to help with interrogating her. Kiyone wanted in on it, but Azazel insisted that it wasn't a good idea. Saying something like being in the same room with someone who was working with Raynare would lead to a messy outcome. Kiyone insisted she could handle herself, but Azazel's decision was final. With no other choice but to obey her superior fallen angel, she headed home. "So, did that flat-chested troll tell you anything?" Kiyone asked the Governor General. "Nope, she's insisted she won't tell me shit. We'll see about that when my guys come down here and talk to her themselves," Azazel replied in a serious tone. With what Kiyone went through tonight, he didn't feel like poking fun. "Can you really trust them? I've known these guys for years, they'd never turn on me. I just finished talking to them when you called, they said they would be in tomorrow morning. Don't worry, if Middle is hiding anything, these guys will make her sing like a canary." "Well, that's good to know. I want an update when she starts talking and what she says." "Sure thing, Kiyone. And I'm sorry again with what happened to your brother." Kiyone was silent for a few moments before answering. "It wasn't you who stabbed my brother, sir. But I will give you personal guarantee, the next time I see that arrogant bitch I'm going to kill her," Kiyone replied in a cold tone. "And you have my absolute blessing to do so, Kiyone. Raynare stepped out of line when she killed your brother. As far as I'm concerned, her life is forfeit. Do I have your testimony for that?" "Absolutely." Kiyone nodded to herself. "So, I guess now my brother will have to live life as devil, huh? If you're worried about his well-being, don't be. If what you say is true and it was Ria's Gremory who resurrected Issei, then he's in more than good hands. The Gremory family doesn't discriminate any of their servants. If anything, they treat them all like family. Trust me, your brother will be just fine with her." Hearing that puts my mind at ease, but I never wanted him to get involved with any of this. I became a fallen angel and was given a sacred gear so I can protect him and my family from crap like this, but he ended up dying because I didn't get there in time. All my power, and I couldn't even protect my own brother. I failed," Kiyone said as she began to cry. "Hey Kiyone, listen to me. We've already established this, your brother dying wasn't your fault, so don't blame yourself. You looked out for him the entire time, you had no idea Raynare was gonna have one of her lackeys distract you. As far as I'm concerned, you did your job like any dutiful sister would," Azazel replied, trying to calm her down. Kiyone let out a sigh as she wiped her eyes of her tears. "So, what will you do now, Kiyone?" Kiyone sat silently on her bed, a still, determined expression adorning her face. "It doesn't matter if Issei is a devil now, he is still my brother and I will continue to protect him, but I will do it from behind the scenes. And I will continue to do so until he doesn't need me anymore, but I will need to train more for that to happen." I know this is asking a lot but will you help me become stronger, Azazel? On the other end of the line, Azazel smiled. Kiyone may have her differences with him, but she still respects him as a teacher and her superior fallen angel above all else. And sure, Azazel may be laid back and quip a joke every now and then, which annoys Kiyone from time to time, but he does step up when the occasion calls for it, especially for those he took under his wing. Never thought I would hear those words come from you, Kiyone. You bet I'll help you. Anything for my prized student. Kiyone smiled at Azazel's answer. Thank you, Azazel. Really, I mean it. She said wholeheartedly. It's no trouble at all. Now we'll start your training after school tomorrow. There's an abandoned warehouse on the other side of town by the water canal. Meet me there and bring the combat suit I gave you back at Blackwater, you'll need him. Now, it's been a long day, get some sleep, you'll need to for tomorrow. Yes, sir. Good night, Azazel, and thanks again. Anytime, Kiyone. I'll see you tomorrow. After hanging up the phone, Kiyone looked at her alarm clock, seeing that it was almost midnight. She was about to go to bed, but first she needed to do something. She exited her room and went to her brother's room. Opening the door quietly, she noticed Issei sleeping soundly. After being reborn, Issei was brought back to his home later that night and put to bed. She walked to the side of his bed and looked at him. I'm sorry, Issei. She said quietly as Issei slept. I never wanted you to get involved in this world. But I promise here and now, I will always be there for you. You always protected me when other kids picked on me. Well, now it's my turn to protect you. Rest now, my brother, you can count on that when the time comes when Raynare shows her face again, she's gonna wish she never crossed me. Her piece being said, she exited Issei's room and quietly shut the door before going back to her own room. She got undressed, got into her regular sleeping attire, turned off her bedroom light and went to bed, eagerly awaiting to start her training tomorrow. Eyes, come on. You gotta believe me. Issei pleaded. Yeah, right. Mitsuda retorted. Do you really expect us to believe that you had a girlfriend named Yuma? Motohama added. The next morning, Kiyone did her morning workout like she always did, trying her hardest to get the picture of what happened yesterday out of her head. After eating breakfast, albeit barely in Kiyone's case, the twins set out to school. They then met up with the rest of the perverted trio, and they walked together to school. Issei told Mitsuda and Motohama about his date with Yuma, but they looked at him like he was insane. They didn't believe that someone like Issei could get a date. Screw you guys then. He exclaimed annoyed before he turned to his sister. Kiyone, come on, I showed you Yuma's picture, you believe me right? Issei asked, only to be ignored as Kiyone looked to be in deep thought. Issei saw this and became concerned. He could tell that something was off with her since this morning. Normally, Kiyone would talk a bit to her brother in the morning before heading off to school, but she's been quiet all morning. Kiyone. Hey, you okay? Again he received no answer, increasing his worry for her. When they came to a crosswalk, the light was displaying the do not walk light. The perverted trio stopped, but Kiyone just kept walking, still deep in thought. So much so, she didn't even notice a car coming right at her. Seeing this greatly frightened the three perverts. Honk honk, Kiyone. Issei saw this and immediately grabbed Kiyone and pulled her out of the way of the speeding car. Kiyone finally snapped out of her thoughts and came back to reality. She then looked at her brother, who looked like he was on the verge of a heart attack. Holy shit. Kiyone, are you alright? He asked with his hands firmly on her shoulders. Yeah. I'm fine, Issei. Kiyone responded. Issei wasn't buying it. The hell you are, sis, you almost got turned into roadkill. Issei exclaimed. Seriously, Kiyone, you've been out of it all morning. You barely said anything, you barely ate your breakfast. This isn't like you at all. What's the matter? Kiyone was silent for a moment. She got back up with her brother no far behind and looked at him again, but with a smile. Nothing is wrong, Issei, I just have a lot on my mind right now is all. Issei still looked like he wasn't buying it. Issei, I'm fine really, but I do appreciate your concern. Kiyone affirmed. Issei may find Kiyone a bit scary and thinks she can be a bit unreasonable, not to mention she gets a laugh at his expense which irks him to no end, but like her for him, Issei loves his big sister with all his heart. He would kill people who would dare to mess with her. He once beat up a couple boys who were picking on Kiyone back when they were little kids. He wanted nothing more than to know what it was that had Kiyone so distracted that she almost became road pizza, but from the look on her face, he knew that trying to pry her for information was a lost cause. So instead he dropped the subject. Well, alright, if you say so, Kiyone. I won't pry any further. Just remember, if you ever want to talk, I'm here for you, sis. I hope you know that. Issei said with an honest smile, which made Kiyone smile as well. Thank you, brother. And yeah, I know I can talk to you when I can't talk with no one else. The tender moment between the twins was ultimately ruined when Kiyone felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked to see Mitsuda with a stupid grin on his face and an arrogant air about him. And you can count on me to be there for you too, my beautiful ice queen of Kuo Academy. he said, trying to sound like a caring gentleman, but really he just wanted to try and get in her pants. Ruining the moment between her and her brother really agitated her. So without skipping a beat, bam, oof. Kiyone socked Mitsuda in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground, clutching his stomach, frightening the other two perverts. She bent down until she was close to his face, a visage of the Grim Reaper once again appearing behind her. Your concern is touching Mitsuda, but coming from a shameless lolicon like you is completely unnecessary. And the next time you lay a hand on me, then I'm gonna aim lower, and I can guarantee they won't be able to fix your family jewels. Get the picture? She told the shaved lolicon pervert with a very frightening tone, further scaring the perverted trio. Issei, despite being intimidated, was relieved to see that Kiyone was acting normal again, which brought him some peace of mind. There's the Kiyone I know. He said to himself. Well then, if we are all done screwing around, I believe we have classes to attend. With that said, the four headed to Kuo Academy, Issei and Motohama helping Mitsuda, who was still in pain from getting hit in the stomach. After school, the school day was finally done, and everyone was either heading home or off to their respective clubs. During lunch break, Kiyone received a text from Azazel that told the exact location of the warehouse she was to go to for her training. Kiyone just left her classroom and was about to head to the warehouse when she ran into her brother and his friends. Hey Kiyone. Her brother greeted. Issei. She greeted back to her brother in a casual tone. She then looked to Mitsuda and Motohama with an annoyed expression. Mitsuda, Motohama. She greeted the remaining trio with an annoyed tone. Oh, still cold as ever Kiyone. Motohama said lightly. As expected of the Ice Queen of Kuo Academy. Replied Mitsuda. Still with that Ice Queen crap. Seriously, you guys have called me that since our first year. It's really starting to get old and annoying. Kiyone said, annoyed at her title. Anyway, you heading home, Issei? Issei shook his head at Kiyone's question. Nah, I'm going to Mitsuda's house. Kiyone's eyebrow began twitching because she knows why he is going to Mitsuda's house and prayed she was wrong and hoping he was going to study with him and Motohama. I'm probably going to regret asking, but screw it. Are you at least going there to study? Studying? Replied Mitsuda. Ha, now wait Kiyone. We are having us a mega movie marathon of my treasured collection of DVD porn. Mitsuda shouted, completely unashamed. A couple of passing female students just looked at him in complete disgust, even calling him gross. Kiyone just looked at Mitsuda in complete annoyance as her eyebrow continued to twitch. Kiyone put two fingers to her head in annoyance and shook her head. I knew you were gonna say that. And yet I asked. Well then why the hell did you ask? Asked Motohama facetiously. Kiyone gained a tick mark as she glared at Motohama. Don't be a smartass with me, you four-eyed creep. Kiyone shot back, making him flinch. Issei just snickered at his sister's response. Are you about to head home, sis? No, I'm headed to the library. Got an exam in biology tomorrow and I need all the material and peace and quiet I could find, so I won't be back till later tonight. Responded the older Hyoudou twin. She didn't like the fact that she just lied to her brother, but she didn't have a choice right now. Alright then, I guess I'll see you later then Kiyone. The twins bid each other goodbye and went their separate ways. Issei was still worried about Kiyone. She almost got hit by a car this morning because she had a lot on her mind, but he knew it was something else. He knew something was wrong with her and wanted to help her any way he could, but knew that Kiyone wouldn't admit what was wrong. So he just brushed it off for now. He knew that if Kiyone wanted to talk, she'll come find him. Unknown to the four, someone was watching them from the second floor. The ones watching them were two girls, both third-year students. One girl was a beautiful young woman with white skin, blue-green eyes, and a rather buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature is her long, beautiful crimson hair that reaches down to her thighs. This was Ria's Gremory, a high-class devil and president of the Occult Research Club. She was also the one who reincarnated Issei into a devil. The other girl was a young bespectacled woman with a slim figure, black hair styled into a short bob cut and violet eyes. She also adorned a serious expression on her face. This was Sona Citri, another high-class devil and president of the student council. The girl seems rather interesting. Do you know who she is, Sona? Riaz asked. I do, as a matter of fact. That is Kiyone Hyoudou, known by a lot of the boys around here as the Ice Queen of Kuo Academy. Sona answered, intriguing Riaz. Hyoudou any relation to my newest pawn, Issei Hyoudou? She's his older twin sister. Sona answered, earning an amazed expression from Riaz. She had seen Issei and Kiyone interact with each other while at school, but never would have guessed they were siblings, let alone twins. And from what I heard from Tomo and some of the other students, they are total polar opposites in terms of personality, leaving many to find it hard to believe they're even related, myself included. You see, unlike her brother, she is a very serious individual who does not tolerate perverts in the slightest. In fact, I heard a rumor that the last pervert who tried to catch a peek of her changing in the locker room after gym class, Kiyone put his testicles in a vice grip and almost squished them like grapes. Sona further explained. My goodness, sounds like I wouldn't want to make this girl angry. Well, aside from that, she is also quite intelligent. Top of her class, has the best grades in her year, as well as being the top of the grade curve for the second years. She's also a very hard worker and quite accomplished in sports as well. A smart girl and a hard worker, sounds to me like you two would get along great. I'm surprised you haven't brought her into your peerage. The thought crossed my mind when she first started at this school, but I can't help but think that she's hiding something. Hiding something? Like what? I'm not sure, but something tells me we should keep a close eye on her. Oh Sona, don't you think you're just being paranoid? Riaz asked lightly. Maybe, maybe not. Even still, I believe there is something off about her. Perhaps we may need to keep a watchful eye on her. Sona responded. As Kiyone exited the school grounds, she took a turn into a nearby alleyway. Looking around and seeing no one was around, she brought out her wings and took to the sky. Reaching a good height in the air, she flew to the roof of the school. At lunch, she snuck off school grounds and went to her house. Once she entered her room, she grabbed her black fatigues along with a clean bra and pair of panties and put them in a gym bag. Once she got back to the school, she hid them on the roof so she could pick them up later. After grabbing the gym bag, she flew back into the sky and headed for the location of the warehouse. She flew for a few minutes before she spotted the warehouse. It certainly seen better days. It was a very large two-story building that was completely run down with some broken windows, trash was littered everywhere, and plants began to grow out of the foundation. Even though the place was fenced off, that didn't stop a bunch of delinquents from breaking in and spraying the walls with graffiti. Kiyone read up on the warehouse before coming and learned that the owner of the company who owned it lost the place after the co-owner ran off with all of his money. Kiyone didn't know how she was going to train without making a good amount of noise, but knowing Azazel, he had a plan in mind for that. Kiyone then walked up to the door, which was unlocked, and opened it. The inside of the warehouse looked about the same as the outside, only the inside was littered with training dummies, weapons racks, it even had a fully functional shooting range with target set up. Kiyone was very surprised to see all this equipment. She knew Azazel agreed to help her, but didn't expect him to pull out all the stops. She suddenly heard footsteps to her right side. She looked to see Azazel in a black business suit with a violet tie walking up to her with a smile. Kiyone, glad you could make it. The Governor General greeted his pupil. Wow, this is quite the setup you got here, Azazel. Kiyone replied. Well, like I told you, anything to help my prized student. I see you got the fatigues. Kiyone showed him the gym bag and its contents, confirming his statement. Good, head up to the office upstairs and change into them, then we'll begin your training. Kiyone saw the stairs that led to the office and headed there. But before that, she turned to her teacher. Alright, I'll go change. No peeking, you pervy old man. She said. Azazel just chuckled at his students. Don't worry, I have no intention to. I'm your teacher and you're my student, and that is where it stays. He said seriously, surprising Kiyone. Besides, high school girls don't do it for me. He replied, causing Kiyone to gain a tick mark, which made Azazel laugh. Pervert. She said before turning and heading to the office to change. After changing, she walked back outside to meet up with Azazel. You look dressed to kill. He complimented with a whistle. Indeed she was. Kiyone was now outfitted with a modified tactical combat suit that was black in color and equipped with black combat boots. The suit was also custom fitted with a hood to help hide her in the dark. On the shoulders were patches with the symbol of the Grigori organization, which consisted of an upside-down cross that was surrounded by 6 wings, 3 on each side of the cross, and were gold in color. On the sides of the legs were dispensers that holds ammo clips for her Jericho pistols. The clips, which on top of holding her light ammunition, were specially designed to hold specialized ammunition for any situation when her light bullets wouldn't cut it. Kiyone also put her hair in a low ponytail. I'm glad you approve. Can we begin training now? Kiyone asked, putting a hand on her hip. Sure Kiyone, but first I got a couple things for you. Azazel went to a table with a large box on it, opened it and presented the contents to Kiyone, which was a mask that covered the whole head and was shaped like a skull with an ocular device on the right eye. The mask itself was also black in color. Kiyone looked at the devices in awe. Whoa. Azazel, what is this? Azazel smiled at his student's question. Just something I made in my spare time. Here, go ahead and try it on. He said as he handed the mask to Kiyone. Kiyone took the mask and put it on her head. Once she did, the front of the mask lit up, showing what looked like a virtual heads-up display, or VUD, that could well be from a video game. It displayed a number of things, including what looked like a mini-map with her current location showing on it, and some numbers which Kiyone concluded were her vitals. Temperature, pulse, heart rate, etc. and what appeared to be a compass on the top of the screen. Kiyone was awestruck of everything the helmet was capable of. Azazel, this is amazing. Did you design this helmet? Indeed I did, Kiyone. He said with pride. The helmet, aside masking your identity, is also equipped with the latest and greatest in virtual heads-up display technology developed by the Grigori. Everything you need right there before your eyes: video phone, internet access, GPS, and as you can see, it even tells you your vitals. Not to mention it has been fitted to allow you access to multiple databases, foreign, domestic and otherwise, including that in the Grigori. Azazel explained. As he was explaining, the mask scanned his face and along with his picture, it also displayed detailed information on who he was. Amazing. Kiyone said in excitement. And as in special feature, I even added a voice modulator. Press the button on the right side of the helmet. Kiyone did just that. Check, check, check. Haha, she giggled in excitement at the feature before she pressed the button again to return her voice to normal. Oh, this is so awesome, I freaking love this thing. Azazel just chuckled at his student's excitement. I'm glad you like it, Kiyone. Now if you are done admiring your new toy, I think it's high time we get to training. Kiyone nodded her head in agreement before she took off her mask. But first she had a question. Before we do, Azazel, a question if I may. What is it? Middled, did she tell you anything? Azazel just shook his head at her question. Afraid not. But my guys are working on her as we speak. Come hell or high water, Kiyone, she is going to talk. I guarantee it. I see. Kiyone replied. She then let out a deep sigh before putting her mask back on. Alright then, let's get to training. She said in a determined tone, causing Azazel to grin widely. He then snapped his fingers and suddenly the area was surrounded with a barrier. Kiyone noticed this and Azazel knew what she was going to ask. Not to worry, this is a soundproof barrier. As long as we are in this area, we could all out and no one's the wiser. Kiyone smiled at her teacher. I figured you would have something for this. Now then, let's do this. Alright then Hyoudou, let's see what you got. Azazel returned with a grin of his own. A few hours later, night had fallen over Kuo town, everyone was either going home after a long day at work or doing some evening shopping. After training for a good few hours, Kiyone was now heading home. As she flew through the air, she looked at the newest addition to her wardrobe, a silver bracelet with a violet gem on the top of it on her left wrist. The moment Azazel gave it to her was still fresh in her mind. Earlier that evening, the inside of the warehouse was littered with shell casings, paper targets shredded to pieces, and pieces of training dummies all over the place. The two had decided to end the training for today since it was a school night. While Kiyone was changing back into her school uniform, Azazel was sitting on the table casually playing on his phone. After changing, she placed her fatigues and mask in her gym bag and met up with Azazel. Alright Azazel, I'm headed home now. Can I assume the same time tomorrow? Yep, right after school. But before you go, Kiyone, I got something for you. He then reached into his pocket and produced a silver bracelet with a purple gem in the middle of it. Kiyone took it and began to examine it. If you're trying to court me with jewelry, it's not like that, Kiyone. Azazel interrupted. This is actually a special bracelet. Special how? I'm glad you asked. Azazel began. I'm aware that you are adept at hiding your fallen angel signature, but with this, I had a couple of my guys in R&D put a few spells on that will completely shield your power as a fallen angel from everyone, not even high-class devils will be able to tell. As far as they're concerned, you're just a normal human girl. Wow, that's actually impressive. Kiyone complimented, sounding impressed. But wait, there's more. Take out the fatigues and mask. He commanded, causing Kiyone to look at him strangely. Just trust me. Knowing that questioning him would be pointless, she did as she was told and laid the contents of her gym bag on the table. Azazel then took the bracelet and pointed towards the fatigues and mask with the jewel facing them. Suddenly, the gem emitted a purple light that covered the items. Suddenly, they were gone, surprising Kiyone. What happened? What did you do? She asked hysterically. Don't get your panties in a twist, Kiyone. He replied calmly. He then put the bracelet on her left wrist. Now I want you to say equip. Kiyone looked at Azazel with a raised eyebrow, but complied with his order. Equip. Suddenly, Kiyone was engulfed in the same purple light. After a brief moment, the light faded and Kiyone was now wearing her outfit once again, surprising her greatly. Amazing. Azazel, you outdid yourself again. She complimented, causing Azazel to chuckle once again. I knew you would like something like this. Now before you ask the obvious question, just say our move and you'll be back in the clothes you were in before you equipped the outfit in the first place. Not needing to be told, Kiyone did just that. Remove. The same purple light emitted again and after a moment, Kiyone was back in her school uniform. You see, stylish and functional. Azazel lightly chuckled at his quip. Kiyone was silent for a moment. Her teacher had not only agreed to train her to help her become stronger, but he also gave her the tools to help her even more. She was having trouble finding the words to express her gratitude. Finally, she managed to figure out what she could say to him. Thank you, Azazel. Really, I mean it. Everything you've done for me, everything you're doing now, it's just Kiyone began before Azazel put his hand on his shoulder, causing her to look at him. Azazel looked at her with a genuine and warm smile. You don't need to thank me, Kiyone, I always look out for and take care of those who I take under my wing. You are one of the best and brightest students I ever had the privilege of teaching. You have potential and talent very few in the fallen angel ranks possess. People like you come around maybe once in a generation, and I know without a doubt that if you continue down the road you are, then you will become a very great and powerful fallen angel. Perhaps even greater than I one day. He said with a warm smile, causing Kiyone to look at him the same way. She then wrapped her arms around him in a hug, surprising him. But then Azazel put on the same smile as before and returned the hug. Alright, away with you now, I'm sure your parents and brother are wondering where you are now. He said playfully before breaking the hug. Not needing to be told twice, Kiyone said her goodbye to Azazel and took off into the night. Present, as Kiyone was flying through the air, she saw the convenience store she and Issei frequent and decided to stop to grab a drink before heading home. She landed in a nearby alley and retracted her wings. She then entered the shop. Ding ding. The cashier looked to see the customer and smiled at her. Hey there, Kiyone. He greeted. Hey Satoshi. What's new? Nothing changed but the weather. The cashier, now known as Satoshi, replied, causing Kiyone to chuckle. Kiyone went to the back of the store where the refrigerated section was. She then grabbed a bottle of iced tea and went to the counter to pay. So how's the family, Kiyone? Satoshi asked as he scanned the bottle. They're all good. Though Issei is still the biggest pervert you'll ever meet. Kiyone replied as she paid the amount owed. Satoshi just chuckled at her comment. Yeah well, that's family for you. They may get on our nerves, but that's what they do, they're supposed to make your life hell. Kiyone took Satoshi's words to heart before she took the bottle. Yeah, you're right about that. My family may be nerve-wracking, but I love them all dearly and I wouldn't trade them for anything. Well good night Satoshi. Good night Kiyone. Be careful on your way home. Kiyone exited the store and opened the bottle. She took a swig from the bottle, enjoying its contents. As she was about to start walking, she saw something that caught her eye. Someone was running towards a very familiar park. And Kiyone immediately recognized the figure. Issei? She said to herself. She then started running after him. Issei Pav. Issei has had a really weird night. If it wasn't weird enough that his parents and friends didn't remember Yuma, but now it seems as if she fell off the face of the earth. And to add to it, while watching porn at Mitsuda's house, he realized that he could see clearly when the room was completely darkened. Feeling frightened, he left to go home. On the way, he realized he could hear a conversation between a mother and her daughter while they were blocks away. He was now scared halfway out of his mind. After running, he soon found himself at the very fountain where he was stabbed and left to die. This is it. This is the park where I took Yuma after our first date. It was real. It couldn't have been a dream. I remember every single thing about it. He said to himself reassuringly. He knew without a doubt he had a girlfriend for a brief amount of time and they did go out on a date. So why was it that no one could remember her? While he was contemplating what the hell was going on, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. What the hell was that? He looked to the side and saw someone in the darkness, watching him. The figure was revealed to be a middle-aged looking man with short black hair and dark blue eyes. The man's attire consisted of a pale gray trench coat over a white dress shirt with a matching ascot, black pants and shoes, a pair of black gloves, and a black fedora. Well this is certainly unfortunate. Me running into you that is. The man said as he walked towards the frightened pervert as his body began to shake in fear. Oh man, why won't my body stop shaking? Issei asked himself. Suddenly the man shot a terrifying glare at the boy. Almost on instinct, Issei jumped several inches back, which utterly surprised him. Damn, I only meant to back up a bit, not jump. He thought. Looking for a way out? Asked the man. Not wanting to stick around anymore, Issei took off into a sprint in the opposite direction. While running, Issei saw what looked like feathers falling from the sky. What the? Feathers? Yuma? He looked up to see the same man from earlier with black wings coming from his back. The man then landed in front of him, cutting off Issei's escape route, causing Issei to drop his bag. Such cowardice. I can't abide lower class beings, the man said arrogantly. Issei continued to look at the man, terror clearly etched on his face. No, how can this be real? So let's see. It appears as though your friends and master are nowhere to be found, you show no signs of disappearing, nor any magic circles being deployed. Therefore I will assume you are nothing but a stray, is that correct? Inquired the man as he materialized a light spear that was blue in color. And that would mean killing you won't be a problem. Issei tried to take off in the other direction, but it was in vain as the spear pierced through Issei's knee, causing Issei tremendous pain and making him fall to the ground. Issei tried to pull it out, but touching the spear caused him further pain. He felt like his hands just touched acid. Hurts, doesn't it? Asked the man with a sadistic tone. He then grabbed the spear and pulled it out of Issei, causing him pain. The man then stabbed Issei in the back and pushed all the way through to Issei's stomach, making him scream even more before he pulled it out. Light is a deadly poison to your kind. It burns you from within. Huh, weird. I was aiming for your gut the first time, guess my aim is getting a little rusty. Don't worry, I'll put you out of your misery shortly. He said, raising the spear to deliver the coup de grace. Issei was lying on his stomach, his mind racing at a million miles a second, and he had no idea what to do. He had a hole in his knee and stomach, he was losing blood, and he was about to die in the same place where he did the last time. He looked at his would-be executioner standing over him with sheer terror. I'm done for. Anyone please help me. Issei begged as he closed his eyes and waited for his impending death. Bang. As the man was about to impale Issei with his spear, a gunshot rang out and destroyed the spear, surprising the man. What the hell? He exclaimed. Who's there? Show yourself. Right on cue, the figure revealed themselves. It was Kiyone in her combat suit with her hood up and mask on her head, equipped with a Mosin Nagant 91 rifle in hand. To complete the look, her fallen angel wings were out too. She aimed the rifle right at the man, who had a confused look on him. What's this, another fallen angel? But I don't recognize you. Who are you and why are you stopping me from killing this stray? He asked a disguised fallen, who pressed a button on the side of the mask to disguise her voice. Who I am is not important right now. As to why I am stopping you from making a fatal mistake. Kiyone responded. Mistake? What are you talking about? Asked the man. That boy is not a stray, he is a newly reincarnated devil. One who is under the service of Ria's Gremory. Kiyone answered, shocking the man. Gremory? As in the younger sister of the current Lucifer? Are you sure? I witnessed the event myself. Tell me, what do you think Gremory will do when she finds out a fallen angel killed one of her precious servants? Bit of advice, she won't take it lightly. Well, who knew? To think that this town is under control of the next head of the great house of Gremory, but to also know that this boy is one of her servants as well. Said the man. Although to let one of her servants run loose like this is a very unwise decision. Kiyone just looked at the man angrily. She wanted nothing more than to shoot the bastard who tried to hurt her brother, but she needed to tend to her brother now. Against my better judgment and because you seem to have more sense than the last fallen angel who tried to kill me, and mostly because I have other business to attend to, I'm going to let you go. But if I see you again, when I get done with you, you're gonna have to pick which asshole you want to shit out of. You got that? The man just shrugged at the threat, but took it in stride. The way this masked fallen angel was able to shoot a light spear out of his hand, he knew this assailant was not one to be taken lightly. I will take that into consideration. I'll withdraw for now. But before I go, I've met many fallen angels, but I don't believe I've seen you before. May I at least have your name? He asked sincerely. You can call me Black Skull. Kiyone responded. And as for why you don't recognize me, it's because I've just recently become a fallen angel a couple years ago. Black Skull. An interesting name, I will certainly remember it. And a newborn to boot. Heh, looks like things are starting to get interesting around here. He responded before he took to the skies again. Seeing as how you gave me your name, I will return the favor. My name is Donaseek and I pray we never meet again, newborn. Farewell. With his piece said, the fallen angel, now known as Donaseek, flew away to parts unknown, leaving Kiyone and Issei alone in the park. Kiyone dissipated her rifle and ran to her brother. Issei was wincing in pain from the hole in his knee and stomach, blood was spilling profusely. He looked up to his savior, whom from the figure could tell was a woman, with a confused look. He wondered why would someone with the same wings as his attacker would save him. Who are you? Kiyone slowly flipped him on his back carefully so he was looking at her. She gently cupped his cheek. I introduced myself as Black Skull, but you can call me your guardian angel Hyoudou. She replied. My guardian angel? Don't worry, you're going to be alright. I failed you once when that arrogant bitch killed you, I won't make the same mistake twice. You can count on that. Issei was about to ask more questions until a red glow appeared behind him. Both him and Kiyone looked, and Kiyone knew what was about to happen, while Issei was still confused. What is that? What's going on? He asked weakly. Kiyone put a hand on his shoulder to calm him down and making him look up to his savior once again. Don't worry, your friends are coming to help you. I must go now. We'll be in touch. Kiyone assured him before she put a finger to Issei's forehead. The next moment, Issei was fast asleep on the ground. Her job now done, Kiyone took to the skies and flew home. Later that night, Kiyone was now sitting on her bed in her sleeping attire with her mask on. She was fiddling around with her new toy to see what else it can do. Man, this new helmet Azazel made is off the hook. She said amused. After fiddling around with it for a bit longer, she took it off and looked at it with a serious expression. I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time when Issei got attacked, but I know luck like that won't last forever. That's twice now these rogue assholes made an attempt on my brother's life. I have to get stronger no matter what. I will continue to protect my brother until he doesn't need me anymore, and that is a promise. She declared as she continued to look at her mask. Her train of thought was broken when she heard a knock at the door, forcing her to quickly hide the mask under her bed. Yes. She said as she regained her composure. Kiyone, it's late. You better be getting to bed, young lady, you have school in the morning after all. The voice came from her mother. Okay mom. Good night. Good night sweetie. Before going to bed, she grabbed the mask from under her bed and put it back in the bracelet Azazel had given her. She then turned off the light and went to bed. She eagerly looked forward to training with Azazel tomorrow and was ready from whatever else the Governor General had in store for her, and hopefully the interrogation of Middle will make some headway tomorrow or in the next couple of days. Having had enough of thinking about tomorrow, she shut her eyes and fell asleep almost immediately. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.